Well. G'day guys, welcome back to another video. Right now I'm here in Darwin and today we're going to be flying with Qantas on their 737 over to Singapore. Now this flight has been back running for about 3 months now after stopping, I think it was in 2006 is when it was last running. So it's only been going for a few months, so I think it's going to be interesting to check it out. I know it's just your general 737-800, but I suppose they usually operate the newer aircraft on this route, the ones with the IFE, etc. So it should be slightly more comfortable than some of the domestic flights you may just get within Australia here. Right now, I'm just outside the Darwin terminal. I've just landed in from Adelaide and it's a beautiful 26 degrees. And yeah, really pumped for this trip actually. I'm gonna have 2 nights in Singapore before I fly onwards with AirAsia up to Penang. A couple of nights there before we head back to Kuala Lumpur. Then we're flying business class in the A350 with Malaysian Airlines up to Tokyo. Fair few flights after that one as well. So really looking forward to it. So I'm currently just outside the terminal as I have about a 3-hour layover here in Darwin before we head across over to Singapore. Now I booked this flight about maybe 3 months out approximately, and it cost me about 25,000 points and about $200 in taxes. So it's not too bad considering really. My last flight, which if you saw my last week's video, that was Adelaide up to here in Darwin on the Qantas E190. Let's cut it in half. So that would have been about what, 12,500 points and $100. This one here, exact same, but across to Singapore. So I think it's quite good value either way. I think a really good thing about this flight that I'm just about to hop on is it gives the locals here in Darwin a chance to hop over to Singapore, just bouncing once before they head over Europe. Because otherwise, previously, they would have to head down to Adelaide or either Perth, depending where they're going, maybe even double back to Sydney. So this is much more convenient and it's a much better option for them. I suppose in some places they could easily hop over to Denpasar, Bali before heading on somewhere else, but at least this one's just a one-way direct option over to Singapore, then bang, you can go straight to Europe just about from there. Anyways, I've been outside for long enough now. I've enjoyed the beautiful 26-degree Darwin weather, which I know is not that hot, but in Adelaide right now, it's, you know, you're lucky if it's between 10 and 15 degrees during the day. So it's absolutely beautiful, soaking it up here. But yes, anyways, let's head into the terminal. I'll find somewhere to relax, chill out for a couple hours, then I suppose make my way to international. Let's go. I didn't hang around in the domestic area for too long before making my way into international departures. Funny enough, I think they accidentally allowed me through as security questioned me about heading off to Timor today, to which I replied I'm going to Singapore, but since I made it that far past customs, they allowed me through. So it turns out there's a nice coffee lounge in the international departures where I stayed for a little while, which is not bad for a drink or a small snack, but if you're after a decent meal, I'd recommend to stay in the domestic departures. Alright, so I've been through customs and security. Pretty quick, efficient process. I don't think there's too many international flights coming out of here. Got a few questions by the customs team because I think they thought I was going to Timor for some reason. But that's okay. Answered the questions, all was well. Got myself a Pepsi Max, a whopping $6.90 as you'd expect at the airport. It's actually quite a nice little like sort of lounge area, which has free access.
Once it was time for boarding, we made our way out to our Qantas aircraft today, VH-XZA, which is a somewhat unique aircraft as it has the split scimitar winglets installed, which I'll explain a bit later once we have a better view of these out the window. So today, I'm sitting in seat 23A, just behind the wing on the left-hand side. Now these Qantas 737s are the primary workhorse for domestic operations throughout Australia, although they are used on some international flights like today. There are 174 seats in total, with 12 seats in business class and 162 seats in economy. And as we can see, the aircraft that we're on today has IFE in the seat backs, which is expected, but I find a lot of flights out of Adelaide around my neck of the woods doesn't have these installed, as generally, I find they're using older aircraft.
And this of course you're seated at our exit row today, row 13 and 14, where all items must be placed in the overhead lockers. Thank you.
The inaugural return of Qantas Darwin to Singapore took place on the 30th of March this year. The service operates 4 times per week and is perfectly timed to connect with Qantas A380 service between Singapore and London, as well as other partnering airlines connecting through to other parts of Asia and Europe. Now, as we look back to 1935, Darwin was the last Australian stop on the Kangaroo route from Australia to London, with the Darwin to Singapore leg, like the one we're on today, taking 4.5 days and 5 stops in between, compared to today's expected 4 hours and 45 minutes. So it's amazing to see how far we have come in 100 years. Now, the total time between Australia and London back in 1935 was 12.5 days and could set you back a whopping £195, or in today's money, approximately 30,000 Australian dollars. So just before we take off today, I'll give you a brief rundown on these unique split scimitar winglets we can see out there. We're currently on one of the 23 Qantas 737s that are being retrofitted with these winglets, which, as you can see, has an extra blade below. They produce a weaker vortex, which reduces aerodynamic drag, and it's said that with these fitted, it can increase fuel efficiency of up to 2%. Now, once all 23 aircraft have been fitted with these winglets, Qantas expects to save 8,000 tonnes of carbon emissions per year. But as we're about ready for takeoff, let's enjoy the view as we depart west out over the Indian Ocean. After departing at 19 minutes past 3, we trekked straight out over the Indian Ocean to begin the 3,335 kilometre or 2,072 mile journey over to Singapore. And with this, we're expecting a rough flight time of 4.5 hours. Now, it was only 20 minutes after takeoff I received my afternoon meal, which is perfect timing as I'm starving. And I know my regulars would be getting sick of me saying this, but as I have celiacs, I have a special dietary meal, which is a roast chicken and some potato with veggies, a few other side options, and a chocolate coconut slice. Other passengers had a few options to choose from, being pasta, beef, or a fish meal, which was followed up by some classic Aussie Tim Tams. Heading over to Singapore, I always think about the boats. You know, you're getting close when you see all the cargo ships in the waters before landing, which had me thinking prior to arrival, I wonder how long it would take from Darwin to Singapore by boat. Well, it's roughly a 2,700 to 3,000 nautical mile journey, depending if they take an open sea or coastal route. So travelling at 15 to 20 knots on the cargo ship, it would be about 6 to 8 days of continuous sailing. Something else interesting I learned was that the waters between Singapore and Australia are heavily patrolled and among the safest major shipping lanes in the Asia Pacific. So I wouldn't imagine there are too many pirates down there. Now, without frequent flyer points, let's have a look at the costs of this flight. So roughly 3 months out, for late October, if you were to try and fly one-way direct from Darwin to Singapore, with Qantas you'll be looking at around $430. However, if we change it up and do a return ticket, it'll work out much better at $611. Obviously keeping in mind that with certain sales, I'm sure you'll be able to find a much cheaper return price when the time comes. Now, Singapore Airlines also operate a Darwin to Singapore service, and funny enough, when I checked the one-way price for the same sort of dates, it was $279 direct, and for return was slightly under the $600 mark. So I suppose you could play the two off against each other for the best price, but if you're like myself and generally use frequent flyer points, it'd be much cheaper, around 18,000 frequent flyer points and $166 direct one way. So for my 25,000 points and just over 200 in taxes from Adelaide to Darwin, then Darwin to Singapore, I'd say I got a very good value redemption there. You could also consider Jetstar and have a layover in Bali with one way as little as $253, keeping in mind that's with certain baggage limits you wouldn't get with the other two. While this flight is currently operated by Boeing 737-800, Qantas has major plans to upgrade their narrow-body fleet in the coming years, with this route possibly looking a little different. So Qantas has ordered the Airbus A321XLR, the extra long-range version of the A321neo, the first of which arrived just in June, but as they're still doing pilot training, it's possible that it won't be in service until September. The plan is to replace the aging fleet of 737s with this aircraft over the next decade, with the hopes that there'll be 7 XLRs by June next year. The A321XLR offers nearly 50% more range than a standard 737 and significantly improved fuel efficiency. There won't be a big difference with things like legroom, however, there should be better seats, USB-C ports, improved cabin comfort, 60% bigger overhead baggage compartments, and obviously Wi-Fi. However, there will not be any IFE in the seatbacks. So routes like Darwin to Singapore are a prime candidate for this upgrade, long enough to benefit from the XLR's range, but not quite enough to justify a wide body. So if you're flying this route in a couple of years, don't be surprised to see an Airbus instead of a Boeing. So as I'm sure you can tell, we're not far out from Singapore now, so let's enjoy the landing, go have a quick look at the Jewel in Terminal 1, then wrap this video up at the hotel.
All right, and we have finally arrived into Singapore after a very long day. Because as you would know, if you see my last video as well, I started the day off in Adelaide today. So it hasn't just been this Darwin flight, it was Adelaide to Darwin, 3-hour layover, and then another 4 hours and a bit, 4 hours 15. Now we're here in Singapore. But yeah, the 737 Qantas, Darwin to Singapore. I mean, I think it's it's great for if you're a Darwin local, and it's great that it's back up and running for the first time in 19 years since 2006. So that is excellent. Overall, it was a good flight. I mean, I've done these flights a number of times now, 737s, obviously domestically within Australia. I've actually flown, more recently I flew the 737 Qantas internationally, would have been from Christchurch, New Zealand to Sydney about 7 months ago. So I sort of know what to expect, but it's cool. It's a different route. Never flown from Darwin to Singapore, and who knows if I ever will again. So great excuse. There's no real negatives, to be honest. A few funny parts, obviously. You know, I like to drink a bit of water when I'm flying, stay hydrated. So I made my way to the bathroom. Put it this way, I had a nice steady stream going when the seatbelt sign went off, and it started to get quite bumpy. So safe to say I was using one arm to really brace myself on the ceiling, because I did not want my head to go fly up on the ceiling. It never got that bumpy or that choppy anyway. But I know what the weather is like. Sometimes coming in around Singapore can get quite bumpy sometimes. But yeah, overall, great flight. It's great to be back flying again, as I would have explained in my last video too. So very exciting. I'm here for 2 nights in Singapore now before I take AirAsia, a bit of a budget airline, over to Penang. Penang's one of my favorite places to go. So I'm really looking forward to heading there for a couple of nights as well, before heading back to KL, then onwards to Japan. But yes, overall a great day. I hope you have enjoyed this video. And of course, thank you very much if you made it this far. I really appreciate it. If you could give it a thumbs up, it does help the video go a bit further. And if you're not subscribed and you do enjoy this kind of content, hey, feel free to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I also have another 115 or probably 117 videos now in my catalog. So feel free to go back and check out some of my older videos from the last few years. But yeah, once again, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one when we're heading off to Penang. Sorry, I had to think for a second because it's been a long day. When we're heading off to Penang with AirAsia. Cheers, I'll see you then.